Okay, pardon our technical difficulties. Welcome back to the Ursine Combo Lab audio. No longer streaming at 4K unwantedly. Um, oh no, my thing is still at 4K. The little graphic. Oh well. All right, we are talking about the year of 2024. I'm Sanotet Typhus, and I'm here with Karushi Drive again. Hey, Karushi.
Yeah, hi everyone. This is Crucial Drive. You may remember me from the days of running a lot of events and stuff for FGC UCLA.
We
Now it's in the hands of the successors. So I'm just part of the community still, playing a little bit of fighting games here and there, but for the most part, just contributing to the podcast episodes. So I'm excited to talk about fighting games in the year 2024 for this episode.
Yeah, and we think that we can cover it. There's not that much that happened, so we're definitely going to be able to handle it. I think between the two of us, but we also have a lot of quotes basically from the community that I can also read. So maybe just to talk through this, we can just like go over what was new in 2024 in the fighting game world. Karushi, does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
All right. So first off, like the games. I think we have to address the elephant in the room. Of course, Multiverse is released again.
Yes, it did. How peculiar was it that it got nominated? How
Again
is that?
after winning. After
Yeah,
winning when it got destroyed, right? Like it
very
actually
strange.
got destroyed. So yeah, that was kind of wild that that happened, but it did happen. Okay. We also had some notable DLCs, like MK1 got its maybe last downloadable content. Um, we don't have a lot of MK players, but usually it would see at least a couple years of content, I think. So that was kind of interesting to see. There was a new Rivals. Do you have any thoughts, or you know anyone who's been playing the platform fighter Rivals of Aether 2?
Yeah, actually, I know quite a few people. The last time I heard about that game was actually as it was about to release, and I heard from it from um, one of the former Smash UCLA community members, Severe, who also dabbled into fighting games along with FG UCLA for a time. But yeah, he has positive comments on the game, especially with the fact that the game has rollback. He said it feels really good to play, and a lot of Smash players from that community really enjoy playing it. I've also heard the same sentiment echoed from, interestingly, um, a member of the speedrunning community who is also kind of dabbles into Smash games. And they have had positive comments on the game as well. So all around, I've heard good things about it, especially when it's compared against its previous game in the series, Rivals of Aether's 1. And it seems like there's finally a game that can sort of challenge Smash in the competitive scene. But as far as casual player base is concerned, I haven't really heard casual players get into it in the same vein as, the massive casual following that Smash Ultimate has and the Smash series continues to have overall.
Wow, I didn't know it was that serious. It was actually a competitor.
Yeah, I mean, uh, well, to be fair, it's not really gonna challenge Smash regardless of like how well it does because the IP that Smash has is just simply too strong. But given that it's doing as well as it has done, I'd say it's pretty impressive that it's even being considered as like a challenger within the 2D platform fighter competitive scene.
That's pretty
And
good. Yeah, I mean, because NASB kind of fell off, even with NABS 2. It really didn't grab any sort of cultural, toehold. So the Nickelodeon game's pretty much done. But hey, this able to compete. That's cool.
yeah, yeah, and also I believe I'm looking at the Genesis lineup for next year. I believe from what I had heard, it is going to have a spot there as one of the games in the main lineup. Let me just make sure of that. Yeah, it looks like they do have it, or at least they have. Yeah, they do have it. So that's pretty exciting that it's a main title over there. That means the Smash community is pretty accepting of it, and given how rich of a history Genesis as a tournament has. It should be exciting to see how that game performs in, a much broader spotlight.
That's very cool. We had some, to go back to DLC, we had a few notable DLC releases this year. We had ABBA and Slayer returning, and they were both kind of like overpowered incarnations of their Zerd self coming to Strive. And we had Dizzy coming as severely underpowered incarnation of her Zerd self. I don't. I know you don't play Strive, but Fish no longer tanks hits.
Yeah, I saw Dizzy's redesign. That's probably the most exciting part about Dizzy's release and
Looked
Strive.
amazing.
Yeah, much better design. Aligns with like the modern standard, I would say, that Guilty Gear has nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like has an air of elegance. It's not just like, oh, it's modernized for the mainstream audience that Guilty Gear now attracts, but it's like legit like a really good design. I can't really comment on the gameplay side, of course, but
Well, you shouldn't. Don't. You shouldn't comment on the gameplay side if we can avoid that. But
true.
it does
Yeah,
look amazing.
Yeah.
And then in Street Fighter, we had kind of like a trickle of overpowered DLC characters. I think Ed arrived this year, Akuma, Bison, and Terry. Terry not as overpowered, but still pretty strong. And I think people were pretty excited as a Street Fighter player. Everyone was excited by most of these characters. They were really cool. I think Capcom did a really good job. So for Street Fighter 6, which I don't think we'll talk about too much in respect to this year, it's still doing quite well. It's still like maintaining itself content wise, and it has a lot of stuff going on in 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the momentum for SF6 has looked pretty strong throughout its lifespan from the moment it released. And 2024, it didn't feel like any of that tapered off one bit. I will say though, people's reaction to the Mai trailer reveal was probably the least positive news
Ooh.
around six yet. And the fact that that's the least positive news, I think, is a good sign for the game overall. Like, if we had to be honest with ourselves, if people are complaining about Mai's looks, if that's like the nitpick that we're gonna make about that game, then it ought to be said that it's doing quite well for itself.
Yeah, that's not so bad. There are worse things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they have time to fix that too. You know, make more cleavage or whatever will make people happy.
And we haven't seen a lick of her gameplay proper, so there's not really much we can say that's relevant to most people's.
Did
like,
you did you try
actual-
Terry out at all?
No, I haven't. I haven't played enough SF6 this year. I did play. I did play SF6 after the major balance patch that took place earlier this year, but I haven't tried out Terry or pretty much any character since like the Terry update.
One interesting thing about Terry is they really did make him a Street Fighter character. Like he became like a grimy sort of like he has a trouble keeping pressure up, but he fishes with these kind of cheap gimmicks to get plus frames and stuff like that. Like he changed a lot from in KOF you're always just kind of swinging. Like it's safe to swing a lot of the time. Jump CD or whatever, what have you. But in Street Fighter, you actually have to be much more like conservative with when you press buttons, and they did manage to translate him into that. So it was an interesting sort of experiment taking that character who's so well known from another franchise, and I think this was the first guest character for Street Fighter. Also, like they've never had that before.
Yeah, and from an SNK IP no less, that's like a huge step forward, I would say.
Yeah, it's nice that it was from SNK, right? Like, who else would you accept? Unless Ragnar showed up.
Okay. Yeah. I guess they would be embracing their more anime inspirations of late, at least according to Woshige. But that's an aside. I will mention one thing though about Terry. The fact that as you pointed out, like it seems to have been transferred over into SF6 SF6's environment pretty cleanly. That's probably a testament to like how clean of a design he is in his fighting game gameplay wise on a whole, because you can see that Terry also fits really well into the games that are like Garo or like the original Fatal Fury games. and he fits into a faster game like KOF, like all smoothly. And now we put him in a game like SF6, which is heavily modernized, but still has pretty sharp shifts in its pacing throughout the
Uh-huh.
match. And it doesn't feel like he's sluggish at all. And it doesn't also feel like he's flying around the screen, jump seating every character. Like
No,
it feels.
he's got a classic kit. It's got weaknesses and it has strengths, and it kind of works in almost any situation.
Yeah, yeah, they really nailed it. It seems like so. That's exciting.
Good old Terrence. Let's keep on the SNK track. We got the end of the DLC for year 2 of KOF. Maybe the end. Maybe there's more. But we got a bunch of DLC characters this year. Ending most recently in Vice and Mature.
Hmm.
I don't know if you managed to try any of these guys out. I haven't tried them out yet, but it was nice to see them finally drop into KOF 15.
Yeah, I'll be honest. It's unfortunate the timing because it was right when VF5 Revo's open beta was taking place, so I was absorbed by that and didn't get a chance to actually open up KO15 after Mature and Vice released. That being said, it doesn't by any means convey the fact that like my excitement was not there for them. My excitement was like shooting out the window for Mature and Vice's reveal and release. I think this is the best selection of DLC they've had since probably the Orochi team for me at least.
Damn.
Um, I I'm not I'm a person that like has been on the record saying I'm not the most enthused by KO15's overall DLC character releases. And I'm a major KOF fan, mind you. But I will say the Mature and Vice release into this game, yes, they were in KOF 14, and they had decent movesets in that game. But so like it was relatively expected that they'd been 15. But even with that in mind, they polished those characters so well. Like not just looks wise, but also gameplay wise. They actually added some interesting things to their kits that make them feel like modern renditions rather than just we're copy pasting them from 14. And it goes to show that SNK still has tremendous attention to detail, despite the fact that it's kind of questionable whether these characters should exist anymore since they're supposedly dead.
They're
Uh,
dead. They're ghosts.
yeah, let's ignore that part, I guess.
What did you think about? I'll just read through. You just let me know if you have any thoughts or anything popped out. We got, I think, this year Shingo, Kim Kalfan, Sylvie, Gernitz, Naj, Dualon, and Hinako.
Yeah, so I will say Hinako, as much as people seem to love that character, I did not see that hype translate over when she released. And now, that's not to say she's not a cool character in 15. It's more so to say that people probably took too much stock in that one clip that Giuna posted on Twitter some time ago. And everyone was like, oh, Hinako's insane in O2UM. I love Hinako. I've been a Hinako fan since 2002, even though that game came out in 2009. And like that kind of thing. I think that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Like, I'm not saying Hinako's not cool, but I'm saying like definitely like some fake fans out there that got exposed when Hinako actually released in 15. And where were those people to be found? Nowhere. Duo Lone, on the other hand, I think has always been a cool character, but he's very unorthodox and by its very nature kind of niche. I know EJK is a big Duo Lone fan in 13, and I think in 13 he is a very cool character. However, in 15 he kind of doesn't fit too well. At least, not. It's not like SNK like messed up in that regard. It's just more so he's kind of weird, and I don't think 15 did him any favors in that regard. But I still don't mind that he's in 15. It's just more so that like wasn't the best fit at the end of the day. And the last one was Kim, right?
Kim Kalfan's in there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Kim is probably the more exciting of those three, but it's like another case of SNK is very wary when there's a character from like a very recently released KOF game that was top tier, and they're like, we don't want to make these mistakes again, so they like make them extremely like balanced.
Yeah, I kind of forgot he was in the game because no one plays him.
Yeah, like when I say
Oops.
extremely balanced, that's like a code word for modern fighting game bad, because
Yeah.
in modern fighting games people play the unfumbleable characters, and
Yeah.
apparently
You
the
want to
character.
win?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I still like him in 15, but I'm gonna be honest, like SNK definitely was a little too careful. So
Okay. So SNK did okay on their DLC season. Strive also brought a lot of fandom back, but there's a lot of grumblings there. I think Street Fighter 6 kind of won the DLC game here
Yeah, I would say so.
for 2024. Yeah.
Agreed. Uh,
Uh,
yeah.
there,
The other thing too. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. The other thing too I want to mention with 15, I think a lot of people are speculating or were speculating that it was done, and after City of the Wolves was revealed, uh, there's not going to be anything left for this game. But
I
the
was
fact
sure it
that,
was done.
yeah, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't have been surprised if they just pulled the plug there. But the fact that SNK came up and said, "Hey, we're gonna drop these two fan favorite characters, and we still got another uh, year proper of SNK World Championships with KO15, and this game's gonna be at Evo Japan next year," guys, I'm so excited for this. Like, KO15 is still alive and well,
Yeah.
and going into the next year, even though the tournament numbers might not reflect it, the game is still one of the best modern fighting games right now, in my opinion.
So basically, you're saying 2024 is the year of KOF 15. All right. I think we're done with the podcast.
Indeed. Case closed.
Well, let's edge into some other games that came out a little closer. So this is sort of a half DLC conversation, half new game conversation. Grand Blue, which is our current Rising Versus, is our current CBBL game. Hey to all our CBBL players who are popping into the podcast to say hi. This came out in December 2023, which to me feels like a 2024 game. What do you think about that? Do you think if it comes in
Yeah,
December, it belongs in that year?
I'm gonna be honest. Like, yeah, I mean, it was that was a very competitive time frame.
It
I must
was.
agree.
Why
That
did
was
why th- this? So this is the main thing about 2024. The three major games all came out within about a month of each other,
yeah, literally.
which is so stupid. It
Someone messed up their R&D in market research.
was insanely stupid.
Yeah. I do think Grand Blue was the best positioned, with that being said, but Tekken 8 is Tekken 8, so that's always going to steal the show.
Yeah,
And then
Tekken 8 was going to be the
Unity,
gorilla.
right? Yeah, and like, come on now, like it doesn't take it doesn't take like that much effort to realize that Uni 2's release window was just doomed from the
Okay,
very get go.
let's get to Uni 2. Let's just give 2 more minutes to Grand Blue here. What do you think about 2B in a fighting game?
Yeah, I mean, hey, they know their audience. If I'm thinking of it from the perspective, that's a smart move.
Okay, all right, that's fair. That's fair. I think they've released some kind of cool characters, like the big Shiva lady. She's kind of neat. So it's a pretty game. It looks cool. It's fun to play. I think that it's nice. It's sort of too bad that the anime game that's the best, most popular right now is the least complicated one because usually anime is where you have super like complex stuff, just usually. So we're in a kind of a weird reversal, Uno reversal situation right now, where the simplest game is the anime looking game. But also that's true with Strive too. Huh.
Yeah, and I do think that Grand Blue is, or specifically Rising, is like a pretty like it's a game that is catering to specific people, but it isn't like standing out in any like fantastic way aside from like the IP, in my opinion.
Yeah,
But that being said, it did everything like that it needed to do. Like it has all the features that it needs to have in a modern fighting game.
it's kind
And
of the best version of itself, if that makes sense.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, it's good enough. It did what it needs to do, and it was positioned the best given like the time frame that it released in, because it
Eh,
released before the other two.
And they did go back and they're like, we need to release this with rollback. So credit to Cygames, for swallowing that pill. They got the extra money for it, but whatever. At least their fighting game now has rollback, so that's good.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the two elephants in the room. Do you have any thoughts about Uni 2,
Oh,
Karushi?
thought. Can you eat those for lunch? Yeah, I have thoughts. All right.
All right,
Uh,
lay them on me.
Right. So Uni 2, I mean, this is something that everyone has in the front of their mind. What a doomed release window. Like it
Yeah.
just I've said this word before that starts with an S, A B O T. I'm not gonna say it, but you guys know what I'm thinking. Yeah, I don't know what Arxes was
You think
thinking
this
when
was a U-Bowl situation for tax credits or something?
something like that. I don't think the game is like the worst uni game. I'm not gonna go there with that kind of superlative, but I will say that I think the gameplay is not the best version of itself, and it's not really like a downgrade even from Uniclair. Like frankly speaking, like a lot of the gameplay features and improvements they did were good for the game.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of changes that they introduced, such as the higher damage to shorter rounds, such as making characters' game plans a lot more like complete and specless that are I'm just baffled by some of the decisions. And the balancing philosophy continues to be buff, buff, buff. And honestly, going in that route just leads to like uncontrollable power creep that, it's kind of hard to steer in the other direction without a complete overhaul of the characters. But I'm not gonna be like overly dramatic. The game isn't like the gameplay is not like bad and it's not like over for the series or whatever, but in terms of the way it performed like sales wise and player base wise, it's not looking too good. I have to be real.
I mean, I think you kind of danced around the fact that also it released with some serious problems right out the
Yeah.
gate. It was nearly unplayable, right? And
Yeah, and
that was only for a week, right? But that's the most important week.
yeah, and people undersell how important that initial week is for your biggest potential player base at that. Steam is like at least PC via Steam is where you're going to get a lot of people, especially new players, to be able to try out the game. And if their first impression of the game is awful, they're going to write that negative review and they're going to move on. They're not even going to look at the game when it gets better, unless they were going to play regardless of how it was, right? Which the dedicated players are going to play regardless. Sadly, those number of players are not enough to keep the game alive for, the long haul. And you could say the same for new players. They might not stick around forever, but those new players are still converted sales. If they refund the game, those new players are not like any form of revenue for the game or any form of like success for the game in the long term. And I think that's where Arxes really like dropped the ball. It's unfortunate that Tekken 8 also released like literally right after because
Yeah.
it did not give it any chance to like recover from like what a mess of a release it was on Steam.
Yeah,
And
it stumbled and then it got stepped on while it was in the mud puddle.
yeah, just having an open beta would have addressed several issues. Given how fast they fixed it in the end, like in hindsight, yes, fixing it within like a week or so is pretty fast. But when you're in that week and when you're a new player, your impression is not gonna like your attention span for the game is not gonna be a week lasting unless you're like
No.
really really interested. Which is not enough people that are like that. And not to mention, even if we disregard the issues that were related to the online, not the netcode itself, but like the matchmaking, a lot of issues on PC, such as related to the resolution being locked, such as people's controllers not being registered,
All
like,
tabs still not working.
yeah, it's just baffling. Like in the year
Yeah.
2024, we still have these issues with fighting games. It's
Yeah,
just not
you
a good.
know, 5, 7 years ago, this was normal, actually. A port
Mhm.
would come out, it'd be fucked up. Everyone, like, even KOF 15 actually had this problem, right? A bunch of shit didn't work for a long time.
Yeah,
Um, but it's become less and less acceptable. So maybe that's the triumph of Uniclear, is that we no longer, Uni 2, is that we no longer accept trash.
yep. And I've been pretty vocal about this on the internet. But if if I'm being completely honest with myself, Uni 2 is not a game I can forthrightly recommend to people. Just because not just because of the launch issue, but because I can't like say it with my heart that this is a great version of Uni to get into. Because it's just riddled with all these gameplay issues, these balance issues, and then on top of that, all the issues that it had on launch while still being a $50 game. It's a really hard sell. Now, with all of this being said, there's still some positives about Uni 2. The competitive scene is doing extremely well, especially in North America.
Hmm.
there's been a lot of great tournaments this year. We can think back to Combo Breaker. We could think back to Climax and Night. Heck, even Evo had an amazing top six that I think a lot of people come to remember, especially with how well Sonaru played in the final. And not to mention, one of the biggest tournaments of the year, or at least the most stacked tournaments of the year, Stormy Night, still showed that the scene in Japan is not waning, at least yet. There's still all the people that are interested in Japan, despite the appearance that NA was probably more interested or had a stronger player base or had a more dedicated player base than Japan in this particular version of the game.
Mhm.
No, Japan is still interested. They might not be traveling to all the events, but Stormy Night went to show that the competitive scene all over the world, at least in the hotspots for the game, are still thriving and still enjoy the game.
Did you like the new characters and the system changes to the game?
Yeah, I think the system changes, save for the damage increases and a couple of other things that are a little bit difficult to get into, like on a year-end general stream. But overall, some of the balance changes, at least since Uzuki released, and basically since the game released overall, they have been in the right direction. But the way Unity 2 started off set kind of an ugly precedent for the game's direction because of how high damage started out being, because of how potent Veil Off became with it being so much faster and also still having the same amount of reward. Um, and Uzuki releasing relatively weak compared to the rest of the cast. Kamone himself confirming that some of the characters are released weak by intention, which is not very enthusing, especially if you're a fan of the characters, like from a lore design perspective. I know a
Mhm.
lot of people that love Uzuki, right? Like,
Yeah.
coming from the story of previous game going into this game, loved Uzuki. We're excited to see her release and play her. But
Incredible animation.
yeah, absolutely, and feels like she doesn't belong in the game, but like in a good way, right?
Mhm.
Because it shows that they're willing to step over the boundaries. But then when you hear that the developer made her weak on purpose, that is not very like comforting to say the least.
Good old Japan balancing.
Yeah, but she is pretty cool. I did get a chance to play against her a lot in Japan. There's a lot of folks over there that are really strong with the character, despite her um, supposed weakness in the meta currently. A lot of players over there are really high level, especially Komone himself. He's really strong with the character. And if you don't know what she does, she can still surprise you. But that being said, overall, I'm looking more forward to the other ice character that's coming out next year.
What do you think of overall the year of meta? Just as an aside here, like in Capcom Cup, everyone complained about Ken and Luke for a long time, and they didn't get nerfed, and Jury won Capcom Cup in 2024. Right? Like Jury was not a weak character, but
Mm,
and there were a lot of Kens and Lukes. Like, don't get me wrong, like meta matters. Um, but I'm starting to think that everyone's wrong about who's like top five or whatever. Like, I don't think it matters that much. I think it divides things in half, basically.
wow, how surprising that people go on the internet to say things about certain characters to try to get them nerfed. Yeah, I mean that's the day and age we live in. If I'm a competitive player, I would like if I really like my livelihood depended on how I performed at some of these tournaments. Yeah, I would absolutely say these crazy things about other characters to get them nerfed. That being said, I'm glad that Capcom has kind of stood their ground on their balancing philosophy and direction. I think they actually have the most grounded philosophy out of modern fighting games, at least to my knowledge. It seems like they're really like sticking with, hey, we're gonna release these balance updates every once in a while, and we're gonna make sure to not, shake things up just for its sake. We're gonna make sure to actually have like focus changes that
Yeah, so
address certain main problems.
2024, we got through a year of, they said they wouldn't change things up that much for a year, and they did it. We actually got all the way through the year, and everyone survived.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, hey, people's complaints they come here and there, but at the end of the day, if the developers just stand their ground, then eventually those people start to get quiet and people still play the game at the end of the day.
Yeah, like in Strive, a lot of people complain about Slayer when he dropped, but he's not doing that good in tournaments. Like, he's a noob killer for sure, but
Yeah, I mean, it does go to show that the meta game, or the meta game that's perceived, is different at different levels of play. We talked about this on a previous episode in
Hmm.
much more detail, but the people that complain on Twitter versus what you actually see in tournaments could differ very greatly, and it could be indicative that the game is in a good enough state.
Yeah, so in general, I think 2024 is the year of balance. Like most games are pretty well balanced. Um,
Absolutely.
at least there's a bunch of people, there's a variety of characters that can win. It's not, there's no one person kind of running away anywhere, even though there's always complaining.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
Bears won Tekken, a Bear player won the Tekken championship. So if you have any last thoughts on Uni,
Yeah, I do have a couple of things. Well, really, I can sum it up in one thing. The the game is balanced, but a balanced game does not a good competitive game make necessarily. I know that sounds weird, but essentially you can have a game where a lot of characters can win, and that game can still be like feel really awful to play. And Uni 2 right now, damage is still very high, and the best characters in the game do a lot of things that kind of make you question why would you play a character that's slightly below in the tier list when the character that's above can do effectively the same things but better or more consistently in a tournament environment. There's several examples of that with Landrikio, with Kuon, with Carmine, with Yuzuriha, who I think is still the best character right now. There's a number of examples of that. And yes, these characters that are a bit lower in the tier list can still win. And we see that with the specialists that exist in Japan. They're still able to make it work all these years. But that being said, when you actually play the game and you fight these characters, it just feels like it's always an uphill battle, despite the gap not being very high on paper. It just feels like they can't do much wrong. And if they're losing, it's really because the opponent that's piloting them made enough mistakes for you to exploit rather than, oh, I actually got a good read on them. So,
so you're sort of speaking about when the game makes it too easy for the character to play the game for you.
yeah.
All
Oh,
at
yeah.
Jinrai, that's my example.
Yeah, oh yeah. That certainly exists in Uni 2, especially in my opinion in Laundry, and Yuzuriha. Those characters pretty much play themselves as long as you're confident enough in the game.
Mhm. Yeah, that's definitely a problem spot. There's a lot of kits now are more plug and play than they used to be. Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah, compared to Blaze Blue where you had to explore a lot to find the grime and things like that. But
Yeah. It's a
that's
little
modern
subtle.
gaming.
It's a little subtle. It's not like there's nuance to it, and I know a couple of people might not understand it as cleanly, or it might be hard to explain as cleanly as it would be typed up in like a limited character Twitter post. But to sum it up, you can have a character like in 2024 that's really strong, but the way they're strong in is like lacking blemishes, right? They just do a lot of things really well.
Hmm.
Whereas a strong character from a game in like 2003 has like this broken plus 900 billion move that if you use it, you just win. Like there's a difference between like the game being like kind of busted in like a broken way versus the game being busted in like, wow, there's not really that many blemishes on this character. Let me play them. And then everyone, gravitates towards that. So
Although you can
yeah,
go back to 99, 2000, and they had characters who had both.
yeah, exactly. That's a whole
So
different mess.
we're making progress.
Hmm.
Uh, so this was also the year of Tekken. So we'll move on from Uni here. Uni's the tragedy of 2024, but hopefully the scene keeps improving and anime players have a place to go.
Hmm.
So Tekken 8 released this year. I think it's the big release of the year, right?
Oh, definitely.
Unquestionable. Probably the big release with Street Fighter and Tekken out. That's like we're probably going 5 years without another release period this big.
I would say so. Hmm.
And I think, they kind of changed things around, right? Like Tekken 7 was a lot about using this really incredible movement to force whiffs and engagements on your terms. Tekken 8's about, spending that meter, getting in there and mixing people up. It's way more aggressive. There's like, the rounds are way shorter, things are happening constantly. And it's I whether people like it or don't like it, I will say this: Tekken did this thing that Tekken always seems to do when it's good, which is it sort of takes all of the Tekken players on a boat away from the FGC. They
Yeah,
all become only Tekken players, and this happened to so many people in the FGC at UCLA. I won't call them out on it, but many people became exclusively Tekken players, and all their time went into the new Tekken. And I hope they had fun. And I think that's a sign of an enthralling game.
oh, 100%. I mean, you have to give it up to Bandai Namco for yet again releasing another highly successful entry into this once kind of dwindling in popularity kind of series. I mean, let's be real. After Tekken 5, which was probably the last great Tekken release from that era in the series, after Tekken 5, Tekken 6 was a flop. Tag 2, although it's loved by like the dedicated players, let's be real, it didn't perform exactly well sales wise. But ever since Tekken 7, they really picked up their feet, and Tekken 8 seems to have continued along that momentum. So it's really exciting to see that the series is yet again like striking with not only like the dedicated players, but brought in a couple of mainstream folk as well to still enjoy the Tekken series. Now, you know, this is all being said from a person that has played Zero Tekken and has or Zero Tekken 8 and has watched very little Tekken 8 competitively. But when the game was first being shown in its early stages before release, I have to say I wasn't super enthused. Now, Tekken 7 didn't exactly sit well with me towards its end, especially with the Leroy incidents and the Fakumon incidents and yada yada. But Tekken 7 was still at least decently fun to play, and I liked the gems that were still present in the game with the movement and the creating whiffs and all of that. Tekken 8 kind of spinning that philosophy on its head with completely like more aggressive gameplay. My first impression was like, this is a little weird. This seems like it's a modern fighting game. Like, it's trying to appeal to that kind of
Yeah, spend your mix meter.
people. Yeah, the BOGO bar being introduced to Tekken, not my Tekken, but it seems to be doing all right. And let's be real, like 3D fighters are not like that popular outside of Tekken, so it was kind of going to do well regardless. I would hope at least.
I think it's done really well. It's holding its own. I think the DLC has been exciting to people. If I can take one little side here, if you're gonna bring back dead characters, you should be really clear that it's like a dream match or something like that. I think it's kind of lame.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
Yeah,
They,
we,
they
we
did
got
have
three
a
this
good
time. We got Vice Mature, that counts as one. Hihachi and Bison. And I'm a Bison player, and I still thought, like, Bison? Why?
Yeah. It's the fan service, it's the nostalgia. You got to appeal to it to try to draw on the most audience that you can. But to be fair to Tekken, they've gotten away with it again and again. What's one more time gonna do to anybody? It's not gonna hurt no one. So
All right, he's back. We had one other game of 2024, which was Marble, the Marble Collection. I mean, maybe it's not a game of 2024, but I think people like this collection, and it was finally like a good collection where they put all the games in. They have made too many collections where they left a few games out. And this one was like, this is it. This is all of them. So that was cool that they released this. Maybe a little highly priced, a little bit.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Hey, the Wazzler's back though. I guess that's all.
That was worth it, I guess, to see Jay Wong able to stunt on people again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. Like I saw the Wazzler stuff. I saw rollback netcode. I can't really provide any more insightful comments. Thumbs up. Seems overwhelmingly positive on Steam.
So that was pretty much 2024. The next thing that I just want to get into before we start to break into like what did people think? We can start reading what people submitted. Is upcoming games. What in 2024 do we have to look forward to? I'll let you go off. Go ahead. You can start.
Yeah. This year has been an interesting time for fighting games, hasn't it? But
Yeah.
next year, I think fighting games are in for a great treat. Virtua Fighter is back. It is so back. And not just Virtua Fighter, but Virtua Fighter being developed in part by Ryuga Gotoku Studio, which many of you probably already know the studio. Like they're pretty famous for Like a Dragon, and not just that, but they've got such amazing visuals in their latest engine. That trailer and the all the details that were spilled at the Game Awards, that really like made me jump for
It
joy.
looks sick. Akira looks sick.
Yeah, and it's not just like a new reimagination for the series, for this new Virtua Fighter title. It's like how do I describe it? It seems to be going for like a more mainstream appeal. So I think with the fact that how many people's eyes were on that trailer and how many, people from, outside the FGC sphere were saying good things about that trailer and good things about the news that Sega brought with VF to Game Awards. I mean, hey, we're in for a good treat. This could be like one of the big hits in terms of like, reaching outside of the FGC for fighting games in a long time, at least since SF6. I
And
say long time, but
we finally have like a real 3D competitor too.
yeah. And that's huge because Soul Calibur 6 flop, Dead or Alive 6 flop, but Tekken eating everyone's lunch, that's not going to be allowed anymore.
Yep.
VF back. And we've got a game to like kind of hold us over for the time being. We're gonna be, the feast is gonna be continuing into VF6's release. Virtua Fighter 5 Revo. This is a game, of course, that's already been released for eons, like literally over 10 years. um,
But
but to be
they
fair,
did us so dirty. They did us so dirty with this fucking game. They're like, we're bringing back Virtual Fighter 5, and they released it on PSN, only PSN.
yeah,
And they released it with Absorb netcode. They had to make up a name for how shit their netcode was. Oh
no,
man, they killed it. It's like they fired the Virtual Fighter into the coffin.
yeah, and they had to do some extreme like hand waving to convince people that the netcode was serviceable. I think
But
a lot of people fall through it quickly.
Revo is definitely. I'm sorry. We're sorry about that.
Yeah, we didn't understand your game. Yeah, the open beta. Okay, before we even get to the open beta, the fact that we're getting a balance patch for an over 10-year-old game, and we're finally getting the first official release of Virtua Fighter on PC, it's unprecedented. Like I mean, Sega has been releasing their games on PC nowadays, but for VF specifically, for such a season series as this, and for a game to begin a balance patch like this, that's like over 10 years old. Of course, it's in the Ultimate Showdown engine now. I said Ultimate Showdown, but you guys get it. The updated visuals. But the fact that we're getting this, and we had an open beta for it, basically right after they announced it, it's just amazing. Like several people were able to try out the game for the first time. We've got a lot of people now interested in VF as a series, and they're like, "Wow, what's VF all about? I want to get into it." And they see that it's actually not that hard to get into, especially when you look at Tekken, where you've got like a laundry list of moves you have to get knowledge checked by before you're really like, you know, before you're really acclimated into the game. VF, you got just your universal tools you can work with, applies for all the situations you can think of. It's really easy to get ingrained with the RPS system, and the fact that the learning materials from previous Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown versions all still apply for Revo makes it so that a lot of newcomers can jump in with great ease.
That's very
It's really
cool.
exciting.
My favorite thing about Virtual Fighters is kind of like out of nowhere. I don't think anyone expected this. I mean, there's some murmuring they were working on another Virtual Fighter, but when you hear things
Yeah,
like that, you expect the Muso or whatever, the
yeah,
gotcha game. But
yeah.
they did it.
The fact that they're even willing to like put rollback into VF5 before VF6 even releases shows that they really care about VF6's success. Because they didn't really have to do this. If they know that
Yeah,
VF6 is coming out soon, they could have just been like, "Hey, you guys just deal with your garbage Ultimate Showdown port that we gave to only PS4. Sorry."
yeah. So
Uh,
someone who cares is working there. It's a good sign.
yeah, absolutely. Love is being put in the series again. Rollback is good. There's still a lot that can be fixed about the online overall, but since it was a beta, I mean, I can give them some slack at least, and it's coming out really soon, next year in January, so it'll be on people's hands again before we know it.
Very nice. Next year, maybe we'll also have 2XKO, Riot's team-based fighting game. We didn't talk much about it, but one of the big events of this year was the beta, where everyone finally got a taste of it. Um,
Hmm.
I think people like it. I think people want it, and it's going to do well. Probably don't need to say much more than that. Um, but it's okay. I'll say this: it's nice to see a Western dev able to make a fighting game.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. Okay. I want to have a high hope for this game, but I'm gonna be honest. Like, it feels like the expectations will probably be unreasonable
Probably
for this
crushing.
game.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I do think this game will do well, but then if you look at like who it's being backed by, this is Riot of all companies.
yeah.
It's gonna be given some unreasonable expectations, and if it falls short of that, I'm a little bit scared of what might
It
happen
may
to
go
it.
to the land of Runeterra a little quicker than people are expecting.
Yeah, especially given all the talented people that we know are working on it. We've got a lot of people from FGC like Marlon Pai, Apology Man, Yohozi, like
Hmm.
several lame names. You can just list them all that are great people in FGC that are working on the game. Really hope for it to be good and successful, but it's yet to be seen, right? The game is not released
Yeah.
yet. There's been mixed
It might
reviews.
miss next year too. We don't know exactly. It was in a playable state. It was ready to go, but it just sort of depends on their timetable. My guess
Yeah.
is June. It's going to take the Street Fighter spot.
Mhm.
That's so. I think we will see it next year, and you will hear more about it because it's going to be such a big game. But we'll see.
Yeah. I'm hoping they can jam pack the roster too.
That
There's a
that
lot that
would
they
be
can do
big, yeah, because that was the main thing with six, is you start to get a little angry at some of them.
yeah. Yeah, and given this is a tag game, the more you can work with, the better.
Yeah, so we'll see. And then we have a SNK will throw their hat into the ring next year also with the return of Fatal Fury. Garo City of the Wolves will come to us in April, I think. It has a set release date.
That's
And
right. Yeah.
this is just going to be gushing. It looks sick. It looks
That,
amazing. I'm really excited.
man, SNK they've really matured since the days of KOF 14.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people like they used to be the clownery or the subject of the clownery of the internet, at least in the FGC space. And look where they are now. Look where they are now. Like City of the Wolves is coming out. People praise the visuals, but not just that. I haven't seen a single negative comment on the gameplay from all the demos that people have done.
Yeah.
Not only are they still able to make good games, they're still able to appeal to new people in the FGC that have like kind of vague or surface level interest in some of the characters like Mai or like Terry, but they're able to appeal to that just like slightly to let you grasp onto and put that into a completely like okay, I shouldn't say completely new game, but in a game that's like one of their lesser popular games if we're comparing to like KOF, right? And given that this game is like gonna take all the learnings I imagine from KO 15, I mean, hey, it's kind of hard to say anything bad about it, is there?
Mhm.
But yeah, it's super exciting. I don't know if I'll buy it personally on release, but that's more so because there's so much to choose from with fighting games nowadays. So I'm literally looking forward to its success.
That's true. I think I'll be in. We did the Garo CBBL last season, and it was really fun. I had a really great time, so that won me over.
Yeah.
Before you head out here, do you want to go ahead and read through your best of list, Karushi, that you
Yeah.
left in the thread?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for those of you unaware, basically we had some folks from the FGC UCLA community give their thoughts on the best fighting game of the year, along with some other things. So I'll go ahead and read out mine. My personal best 2024 fighting game, no comment. My best personal fighting game I've played this year, though, I can give a comment on that one.
Okay,
Virtua
go
Fighter
for it.
5 Revo. Virtua Fighter 5 Revo. I know we've only had this game for 5 days, but I mean, you know it's gonna be my favorite. I already liked this game as one of my favorite fighting games before, but being able to have it in our hands again on PC natively and with rollback netcode was such a treat. I'll go ahead and read out what I wrote. An already good game, now receiving the rollback treatment. Finally, I already said this, getting officially ported to PC for the first time in the series, and the immense amount of depth and layers to the up-close and personal interactions that take place in VF is always a treat. So I'm glad now that Revo's release will give more people an opportunity to experience the Yomi in this game. It's a lot easier to get into than it might seem, so I highly recommend people to give it a try. But I also want to give honorable mentions to KO 15, because this is still at the top of the past generation of modern fighting games for me, pre-SF6.
It's still
And the
new.
top-
It's still fresh too. It's only been out 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. And it had some DLC released this year too. And the top level competitive scene for the game has only continued to flourish throughout this year with an awesome
You mean
champion.
Shanghai?
Xiao is still cooking. Like he can play this as his like side game, a game he doesn't even like practice, and he still wins. Pretty crazy.
He has
Um,
flourished. You are right.
yeah. But yeah, the game is still in a great state balance wise right now, and despite the slightly underwhelming DLC, Mature and Vice are excellent choices to round things out. Um, my hypest set moment of 2024, I mean, no question, Hayao's third strike moment at Evo this
Oh my
year.
god.
Need I explain?
Yeah,
Um,
there's not much that needs to be said. I will say it was overwhelmingly everyone's choice, and it should be. Wow, just like watching that and being able to watch it was really a treat, and it's really it's one of those things that makes you think, wow, fighting games are so great.
yeah, I really wish I could have been there, but it was still awesome to watch from home. Personal fighting game victory of the year. So this one is truly personal in the word. But I had a tremendous honor of playing on a team of three with Kamone at Stormy Knight's Uni 2 event this year. Stormy Night is like a Japan only sort of, you can it's like a major only for Uni. While we didn't make it out of the first round, the entirety of the tournament was incredibly stacked. I learned a lot while playing with Kamone and got a great experience playing against other players in the JP Uni scene that made me so much better at not only playing the game, but also in stabilizing the mindset I now hold for fighting games. Um, the
That
upcoming
sounds
fighting
cool.
game, yeah, it was a really good experience. And Kamone, like I should mention this on the record for sure. Kamone is a fighting game developer that really like loves and knows his game, which I think I would love to see more of nowadays. Like we see a lot of kind of disattachment from the games from the developers, especially with some of the balance patch notes that are released for some of these. But Kamone at least incorporates player feedback a lot, listens to the players, and the way he talked about the game shows like how much he loves it and is experienced in playing his own game. So it's really cool. Um, yeah, okay. Upcoming fighting game I'm most excited about, definitely VF6. The
You're the
VF
only
Direct.
one who chose not City of the Wolves, so
Oh
just throwing
wow,
that out there. Yeah.
that is pretty surprising. I mean, I guess it was recent news, so
Yeah.
maybe
Well.
people already seeded with City of the Wolves before.
Mhm.
But yeah, the VF Direct showed how high stake his ambitions are for this one, and it was exciting to hear that some of the developers that worked on the series way back are returning to work on it for
Yeah,
this
it's
time.
really cool.
Yeah, yeah, I really can't wait to see VF complete its comeback in the 3D fighting game scene, and hopefully it reaches a more mainstream audience. So yeah, those are my points for the best fighting of the year community member thoughts.
Pretty nice, man. Um,
Hmm.
okay, do you gotta head out now?
Yeah, I do, but I'll still be watching from the live chat.
Okay, well,
Thanks for having me.
I'll take over as the solo DJ, but thanks for stopping by, Karushi. You can
Yep.
catch him on his YouTube channel, of course, and around the FGC at UCLA.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Catch you
Thanks
guys
for
later.
coming. So I will, the fighting game community at UCLA, of course, is what it is because we have so many people who come through and join us. And it's very nice to have you all. So of course, I reached out to a bunch of you and got your thoughts on, what we've been talking about today, what your best ofs are. So I'll go ahead and take you through what some people have written here for the rest of the time. All right, so from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, we have their current collegiate admin, and his name is Mocha. And Mocha, his best fighting game was Tekken 8. He said, while he didn't have much experience other than spectating it, he saw that it changes what he expected, and he could also see that players could potentially experiment more. So I think this is sort of respect for Tekken 8 in general. Best fighting game played this year, Moko was a fellow competitor in Garo Mark of the Wolves, the 99 SNK game, Fatal Fury, which basically it was alternate universe Third Strike. It's that good. He said that shit was hella broken in a lot of aspects, but because of that, trying to control the jank, or just playing the top tiers in general, definitely made the game feel really fun to fuck around with and play. I can definitely agree with that. There are some broken things, but it all feels like doable and not oppressive. It was a lot of fun. It was a great game. For hype is set, he says Hayao. He said that's enough said, and I think that's true. His personal fighting game victory of 2024, he actually was able to read and understand frame data. That is important in fighting games. So now he's able to make a game plan and more egregious things. So he's able to get through this thing more than just, your basic understanding of plus or minus. So well done to Mocha there. His upcoming fighting game that he's most excited about, that would be Garou City of the Wolves. He says it's because, Mark of the Wolves was so much fun, and there are these mechanics, feint, break, top, that are just really interesting, and it will be interesting to see how they mix into a modern fighting game. And of course, his Fatal Fury, so you gotta love it. All right. Our next one that I'm going to read is from Zen Ryoku. So Zen Ryoku is a FGC at UCLA admin, and he is our fellow plus R head. He said that his favorite fighting game was the MVC Fighting Collection. It reminds him of the beauty and unrefined chaos of older, rawer times. It's also a good collection on its own merit, and everyone sleeps on the Punisher, but it's a sick beat 'em up. So he's giving the rare accolades to the MVC collection, the OG, MVC2, of course, being the standout there. Best fighting game he played this year, he's just going to give it to Plus R. He's a noted Plus R lover, and he says that no other game blends technical wizardry and unrelenting jank so seamlessly, and is still to this date his favorite comedy open world game. The hypest set that he liked was a SF League match where Ending Walker and Angry Bird went toe to toe, and it came down to the final interaction. His personal victory this year in 2024 was he started working on and making a fighting game. It was a community effort to get it to that point, and now he's working with Lourdes and Allego to shape it into something awesome with rollback netcode. It's called Bootsies, and Zenryoku will release it on Steam. Now, Bootsies, of course, was part of our ARG for the CBBL Season 12, so hopefully you played it. You can still go back into our announcements and check out the demo. It's a lot of fun. It's basically a 2-button fighter. It's sort of dive-kicky, but more interesting, and of course it has more, hidden FGC at UCLA lore and stuff buried in there. So you can check that out and enjoy it. And it also has a local multiplayer right now. And we're looking forward to more Bootsies in the future, Zenryoku. So I hope you're working right now. I hope you're not slacking off. That would make me really mad. Okay. Next up, we're going to read from local UCLA student Man Ninja. So Ninja said that their best 2024 fighting game was DB Sparking Zero. So this is my bad. I should have mentioned this before, but the Budokai series did get a update with the Dragon Ball game, and apparently it was a lot of fun. I saw Diaphone and other people playing it. He says he got to play it a few times, and it didn't quite suck him in, but he thinks it's his GOAT for 2024. The best fighting game that he played this year, interestingly, it was Breaker's Revenge. He played it on the school's arcade system, in one of those cabinets, and he really liked how the characters could just unleash devastating super moves while they were, like they were giving out free candy. It was very smooth to play until he had to fight that bastard Show, and he says that guy's broken, he had to walk away, but he still had a lot of fun. So Breaker's Revenge, this was a game that the Cal Poly Pomona was really loving for a while, and or is that Karnov's Revenge? Anyway, I've played Breaker's Revenge. It's a lot of fun. I think it's fun too. I played the Arab Gentleman. The hypest set of 2024 from Man Ninja was Hayao versus Frankie BFG, of course. It was hype as fuck. He said he wasn't there to watch it live, but he watched the VOD, and all the players were so impressive, but watching Hayao brought a different kind of vibe to the game, and Hugo is just super cool. Hard to disagree with that. His personal victory for 2024, was Man Ninja beat Darkstalkers in the arcade mode. You know, those old games have fucking hard as hell arcade modes, and when you sit down and you finally get through it, it's like a big personal victory when you get everything moving together. He said he played as Rikuo, and he also liked Donovan's style, but he also played as Lilith for a bit, but he got stuck fighting Morgan. So anyway, he enjoyed Darkstalkers. That's a great game. Maybe we'll play it in the CBBL one day. Who knows? Anyway, and then the upcoming fighting game that Man Ninja is most excited for is Garou City of the Wolves. And I think he has an interesting perspective here. He wants to play something that's modern but not SF6. And it looks super fun based on the promotional material, so he's hoping it delivers. And he also feels like since Terry and Mai are in SF6, it's actually drawing him to check out City of the Wolves. So that's sort of an interesting thing that SNK seeds have actually borne fruit here. So that's kind of neat. All right, moving along. I'm going to read the comment from one of our Garou players who joined during the CBBL. This is Nightwing is the best Robin. He said that the best fighting game of 2024 was none. But he did say the Return of Marvel is nice, even though it's not new. So Marvel Collection wins this time. The best fighting game that he played this year was Virtual Fighter 5. It was actually his first 3D game, and he really enjoyed how technical and beautiful it was. The hypest set of 2024, he actually said, and this is a great set to go find, the Garou Vortex Gallery. 2 Terrys made it to top 3, and Terry got first place at a pro tourney. This is like, Terry is like low tier in Garou, so this is actually crazy. So Nightwing gives shout outs to White Griffith here. His personal victory of 2024 was he improved in Third Strike and he figured out how to parry, so he's a parry god now. That's always a nice moment when you get through there. The upcoming fighting game he's most excited about, you're not going to believe this, City of the Wolves. He says it's because it's an influential part of his fashion taste. He really likes the design. He thinks that City of the Wolves is keeping the coolness of Mark of the Wolves. The Billy getting the Save the Planet jacket it makes him seem tough, and Mai getting a leather jacket, like that's actually a really good update. I agree with you, Nightwing. I'm so glad they put clothes on Mai. Wow, it's like that is a huge moment for me. The characters definitely do look dripped. I have to agree with him for that one. All right, next up, we have comments from Alego. So Alego is the UCI rep often in the CBBL, and he's also working on Bootsies, of course. He said the best fighting game of 2024, Tekken. He said he would choose it for the music alone, but this was also his first Tekken, so it sort of sparked his interest in the whole genre. He was kind of pulled in by the Seijan Slam, but he really likes the character designs like Reina, Azucena, and he just thinks that the cast is actually really interesting. The new costumes are good, and the gameplay is a good balance between the complex legacy of Tekken while still offering new players a way to get into the fight. He says that he thinks that there's always kind of scrubby stuff, and that's the way fighting games are. But Tekken 8, it's just in the cycle. He still thinks it's pretty hype, even though there's this scrubby stuff in Tekken 8. You see the legacy players kind of adapting and playing through that, and you can see them coming through. So that means that it must be a legitimate fighting game in that way. Anyway, he's giving it to Tekken 8. And he says it feels like progress and a big contribution to the ongoing Tekken legacy. Tekken. The best fighting game he played this year, he really liked Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Lego says he was so incredibly daunted by this game before. Me too, Lego. He literally had no idea what was going on when he tried to watch it, and after he gave it an honest shot when the collection came out, he was more hooked than he'd ever been into learning a fighting game. He wasn't sure if it's completely his style of game, since it's, It's just bullshit. But he literally could spend hours in training mode and have a lot of fun. He liked focusing on the broken characters and like actually learning the Iron Man and infinites and experimenting with all the ways to like get into that infinite. And a lot of the things that are difficult to execute, like the setup to the Iron Man infinite, are actually fun to like train and keep working on. So it's not like it's learning to, just do the inputs. It's also like you can spend so much time refining your execution for your entire workflow. And so he said that was really cool. Hypest moment for Lego was Hayo. No big surprise there. Enough said. His personal victory was getting Zangief to Masters, entering tournaments again, and starting to work on Bootsies with Zenryoko and Lourdes. And then the upcoming fighting game he's most excited for, I'm going to assume besides Bootsies, and I misspoke to Krushi earlier. We have finally someone who didn't say City of the Wolves. Lego's interested in 2XKO. He says, as a 21er, someone who got into fighting games with Strive, he's excited to see how this game will expand the landscape of fighting games. Even if he doesn't really like the type of game it is, he thinks the development team is like really attempting to make it really accessible so people can actually get into the genre while still leaving a lot of complexity on the table and keeping all the fucked up mainstays of tag fighters. He said he wasn't a fan of the simplified controls at first, but then after Lego played Marvel 2, he was shown that simplified controls don't mean total lack of complexity, so he thinks that'll work well for 2XKO. He also likes the existing IP, and he can't wait to see what Riot does. I think we're all very interested, and he just wants to throw a shout out there to Riot and Capcom for being the ones to really drive new accessibility features in a way that kind of benefits everyone, such as being able to hear how close you are to the corner and hear how far you are away, for instance. So yeah, that's really cool, Lego. Yeah, it's nice that people are working on that. Okay, moving on from our rep at San Diego State University, we have Rig Jace. So the best fighting game of 2024, he says, unfortunately, it's Tekken 8. Rig Jace is one of the people that went into this Tekken 8 boat, and that left for Illyria, and we didn't see him for a long time after that. His game that he had most fun of, he really had fun with Virtual Fighter Revo, or at least he's excited for it. Says the gameplay is fun, but the features around it not so much, so he's hoping that Virtual Fighter will be able to put some technical muscle behind the fun game. The hypest moment for him was in Tekken 8. It was EWC Yagami reverse sweeping Chanel after being down 4-0. And he also liked Ulsan beating AT 5-0 in grand finals. So those were some great Tekken sets. There's been some kind of amazing, unexpected Tekken stories in the Tekken tournaments this year. His personal fighting game victory was getting top 8 at a local and then running his best on-campus LAN tournament from his time at school. He, of course, helps run that SDSU, and, they do a big event, and so he managed to bring it all together. And then hitting Tekken Emperor. Well done there, Rig Jace. His upcoming fighting game, he's with Karushi on this one, Virtual Fighter 6. So he's interested in the other 3D fighter. He says in a Famitsu interview, it seems like they address 90% of the common series complaints. They're going the opposite direction of Tekken and being less fantastical and more realistic. That's a good point, Rig Jace. There's like basically no grounded fighters these days. They know their characters are on the drier side and want to improve those. Only qualm so far is they said they don't know if they'll support the game post-launch. I'm sure they will because DLC is free fucking money. Even DNF had DLC, but we'll see. All right, so that was Rig Jace from SDSU. Next up, we have Snake Eater. Snake Eater is a TO from Eastern Washington. He helped out in Pullman for a long time and has just helped set up the Spokane, the fighting game community up there. He says the best fighting game for him in 2024 was Tekken 8. The cast was sizable. He enjoyed Heat as a mechanic, and competing and playing online was a lot of fun. It was feature rich, and this is something interesting I think that a lot of people didn't say. He actually thinks it's really feature rich with the single player and alternative modes. So there's more going on there than just one versus one, and that extends to the music, which he actually really thinks is great. It's just all around an excellent package, according to Snake Eater. He's very excited to keep up with the game as it keeps improving, and he does wish that they picked Tifa, and I'm sort of amazed that they didn't pick Tifa, because what a slam dunk. I mean, just like the money you could have gotten selling that pass. But they did pick Clive, and Clive is super fucking OP, so I guess you can't be too mad. And Final Fantasy 16 was actually really cool too, so there's that. Best game he got into this year. He did not join us in the CBBL, but he also enjoyed Garo Mark of the Wolves. He spent the most time on the mainstay SF6 and T8, but Garo was a really fun little journey. He kept having fun with it, and he saw it was excellent on pretty much every level. Of course, he's warming up for City of the Wolves, and he liked Grant and Marco. He said that his favorite set this year was, of course, Hayao versus Frankie BFG. One thing that's unique about Snake Eater's comment here is he was actually watching it live. He said that this match in particular was super fun to watch and stay competitive the whole time. He was in the front row, and seeing Evo Moment 38 happening before his eyes was something he doesn't think he'll ever forget. It's probably the most excited he got all year for a fighting game. I think we're all with you there. He wants to give honorable mention to Rang Chu versus Arslan Ash on the winner side of the Tekken World Tour. Arslan Ash also versus AK in Combo Breakers. He's a big Arslan Ash fan. And then Punk versus Dual Kevin at Fausty Frostings. Punk, won Evo this year. Punk's been doing really well. Kind of a cool... He's having a moment. It's cool to see people's hard work pay off. But he says the hypest moment has to be Evo Moment 38. And then his Snake Eater's personal victory up there in Spokane was getting the scene in his town revitalized and starting up locals again. It takes a lot of work. You have to really care about it. There's no profit for TOs. You were lied to that we don't get a lot of money. We get zero money or negative money. But it's really fulfilling, and for him it was super fulfilling to build up the scene in my hometown again and see such a large number of people come out for weeklies and monthlies. And he foresees an excellent 2025 in Eastern Washington. The game he's most looking forward to, City of the Wolves. He's looking forward to all the big games, but he thinks that he can most see himself playing City of the Wolves right off the bat. He's extremely excited for the other ones, but he doesn't know when they'll get here. And that's fair. We don't even know if we'll get 2XKO or Virtual Fighter 6 this year, but see you in April, SNK. Next up, I have a comment from Poppy Jan. Poppy Jan is our DBFZ CBBL champ and also the one of the admins of UC Santa Barbara. Their best fighting game this year was Tekken 8. They felt like every year there's at least one new fighting game that's a breakout hit and kind of brings the FGC into main consciousness. And that's true. Tekken 8 is like one of the biggest crossover games in the fighting game community. It's definitely the game that, people who've never even heard of locals and don't know what a quarter circle forward is or whatever, they play Tekken 8. So that's it's good to play it so we can reach out to new people. While they themselves don't play the game, its impact and influence is unlike any other in the fighting game community, so it gets the nod for being the big titan in that it is. Meanwhile, the best fighting game they played this year, Grand Blue versus Rising. They said that while technically it was released in December, we kind of talked about that, they can't emphasize just how much fun they had. And really because of ease of access, the fact that it is simple to play. They were able to get 3 to 4 different friends into it, and these were friends that had flirted with Strive or Fighter Z, but because of how easy this game is execution-wise, and while still having an extremely addictive, gameplay loop, they didn't feel it was hampered and were able to stay with the game. And they think everyone can start with this game. Everyone can start with Grand Blue Fantasy Rising, even if they're coming from Smash or whatever. And so, I think that's a fair point. I'm having fun with it in the CBVL currently, and it's definitely a game that could be used to introduce anyone into fighting games. It looks stunning. Um, the hypest moment of 2024 from Poppy Jan was Nitro winning Evo Strive. They're heavily biased since Nitro started in the as a DBFZ player, but they really enjoyed seeing people. A game that some people say is too crazy or baby mode. DBFZ managed to give us Nitro's victory here, so Nitro was able to prove them all wrong. They said you just had to be there, but they're biased because they're a DBFZ player. An amazing DBFZ player you are, Poppy Chan. Their personal victory of 2024, they placed 5th in the DBFC Last Chance qualifier. That's crazy. That is definitely something to be proud of, and they were proud of it. And they distinctly remember setting a goal of getting at least top 8. And when they did, they threw their hands in the air yelling, "I'm in top 8." A close second to this moment was probably winning the UCLA DBFC circuit. Yeah, the CVBL. Let's go. They did win. It was great. The upcoming fighting game they're most excited for, 2XKO. Tag fighter player. They like DBFZ, Marvel 3, and other fast, simple ana games with tag mechanics. So there it is. Get your Arcane fans in, trick your Grand Blue fans, to play, and we'll see you in 2XKO, Poppy Jan. I have a couple more comments for you here. I got one from Storm Claymore. He said multiverses for all categories. All right, actually, we'll ignore that one. He put a second comment here. He said fighting game of the year is Tekken 8. The game itself is a massive improvement on the last title, and the devs, that's kind of does everyone agree with you, Storm Claymore? I agree with you. Anyway, the game itself is a massive improvement on the last title, and the devs have listened to the response from the players. And, they actually have patched the most egregious things pretty quickly, unlike Street Fighter, which waited a year. Sure, the game itself is quite a mess, but that doesn't mean it can't be improved. It's got this fast, aggressive direction. It makes veteran players adapt instead of veteran players able to just do what they did before. And although it might be a little divisive, it's fun and interactive, and it pushes players to do something rather than just hold still and not get hit. There's no slowing down for this game, and it shows how much the game is evolving. Interesting viewpoint, Storm Claymore. The best fighting game that they played this year, they're going to give it to KOF 15 and VF Revo, VF 5. Tekken 8 had its moments, but let's not pretend that even the two games mentioned don't have a strong presence like the big three. Basically, they're saying that even though these are smaller games, they're very fun games. The hype is set. They also were able to witness Hayo Third Strike's Evo set in real life, and they said, "Need I say more?" But they also said EWC and TWT had a lot of great moments as well. Worth digging up the VODs if you're into some Tekken. Their personal fighting game victory of 2024, Storm Claymore said it was placing 3rd at their local in Portland. Nice job. They didn't realize how far they'd made it until they started seeing all the other players leaving the venue around 10 while they were still hanging in the bracket. The upcoming fighting game that they're most excited about, City of the Wolves. Refresh start and a long-awaited sequel to Garo. The art direction mechanics and return of familiar yet redesigned characters will definitely help SNK stand out. I think that's true. They're sort of doing this thing where they're updating, but they're really keeping like all the moves are pretty similar. They've got breaking, they're not re-going from the ground up, but they're updating everything. That's really cool. I'm really excited to see how it looks. And they're curious about the 2 Street Fighter guest characters from the Season 1 DLC. I guess we're looking at Elena still and Mai. And then, they're saying that it costs that much. Okay, I understand what you're saying, Storm Claymore. So they're saying it's going to be cheap. Yeah, you're right. That's awesome. That's sick. And they're saying this is a positive direction for Capcom versus SNK. True. We've got, the characters are doing swapsies here. So maybe we'll finally see these versus games coming back. Virtual Fighter 6 gets an honorable mention. He really liked Revo's. He says it's a smooth transition and it introduces a more grounded 3D game using the Dragon Engine. Using the Dragon Engine will shoot the game upwards to be competing with Tekken 8. So we'll see if it can actually be a Tekken 8 competitor. All right, I got a comment here from Jacob. So Jacob is a TO at OSU, and he is saying that his favorite fighting game this year was Deadlock Laning Phase with all its mind games. Okay, Just kidding. It was MVC Collection. He thought it was tons of good, fun games in one package. Good netcode. It's refreshing to learn and actually really executing demanding game. Jacob is a bit of a lab head, and he could spend hours and hours in training mode. He actually said Uni 2 maybe tied, but he thinks it's less fun to play Uni at a low level. So he likes Marvel at a low level. His personal fighting game he enjoyed this year, Plus R. He's another Plus R head. It's still the only fighting game he's ever truly meshed with, and he can always find good games on Quick Match with zero wait, pretty much 24/7. So, as the old saying goes, play Plus R. His favorite fighting game moment this year was to be with his fellow Pacific Northwest Plus R players in Digital Watch's crushing performance in the Frosty Plus R cruise. It was just a very fun, little fun tournament that he was in and watching. His favorite personal moment was when he was getting gassed up by the Combinators and community when he was sweeping in the Frosty Zerd crew battle. He said he's kind of unknown in those circles, so they put him against maybe some players who didn't know what they were in for. But anyway, he fucking swept them. He swept 5 players in a row, so he was celebrated. And even if it was a case of accidental sandbagging, it was really fun. So well done, Jacob. And the game he's looking most forward to is City of the Wolves. He says Mark of the Wolves is super sick, and KOF 15 is one of the best fighting games. So he has high hopes for it. So, yeah, that's pretty much everything. Just give us one moment here. All right, I just dragged in Nightwing as the best Robin. Welcome. I'll just go ahead and finish up with my slate here.
What's
Hey, what's going on?
no nothing much.
We can chat a little bit more about the upcoming games. So let me just read what I thought. I gave best of 2024 to Tekken 8. It's striking, it mix-ups the gameplay, and I think it's better if you iterate. Like, don't just do the same thing. So I actually appreciate that they took it in a new direction. The best fighting game I
Yeah,
played.
no,
Oh yeah, please go ahead.
no, I'm so sorry. No, I'll let you go on.
All right, I'll just finish up real quick. The best fighting game I played this year, I really enjoyed Waku Waku 7. I just picked a random old game and it ended up being really rich and interesting. The Hypest set, everyone talked about Heyo, so I don't need to say anything about that, but seeing Punk get Evo was also really cool to see him finally get it. The personal fighting game Victory, I finally buckled down and got Testament to Celestial. I kind of had been not playing Strive for a long time, so actually just doing it was fun. And then upcoming fighting game that I was most excited about was Garo. It's Garo. What do you need to know? It's City of the Wolves. It's SNK. I'll be there. So we did talk about a lot of the games that are coming up, but do you have any last comments here, Nightwing, about these games that are coming in 2025, hopefully?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I should start with 2SKL because it seems like that's going to be the biggest one. I think the idea is interesting, what the team is thinking about doing. Um, I'm really curious to see how it ends up playing out because I've never even I don't really know if a fighting game has done what they're trying to do with the free to play model, and then you can have a teammate online with you. I've never heard of that before, so for me, that's pretty interesting. I'd like to see what goes on with that.
You're right. It's
Um,
more it's more experimental than we often see in the fighting game community.
yeah, and that's great. I think that's really good that they're pursuing that, and I think I wouldn't say the fighting game, slate or the fighting game industry needs something like that, but I think it could benefit from it for sure.
Yeah, and I do think that the idea of two people kind of playing at once or four people playing at once is just something that makes it more like a community again. Whereas when you're just
Oh yeah.
grinding 1v1s, you don't have a partner, you're separate.
Oh yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. I remember on the Dreamcast of port of Marvel 1, you can actually get four players and each one's playing one character. And I've done that with friends before, and it's a lot of fun, and it really brings people together. So I think seeing that come online is incredibly fascinating.
Nice. So we didn't talk about it, but actually, Strive also added something, probably in a jealous fit of rage.
Yeah,
They added a 3v3
yeah,
mode, which does something similar. Less
yeah.
refined,
Oh
though.
my God, that's right. I have to try that out actually.
Yeah, I think that's sort of slept on. We haven't, not many people in the court have tried that yet. Mostly people
Yeah,
are
that
just
seems
memeing on it. Look at this stupid thing that can happen.
that's a really for like an anime fighting game. That would wow, that'd be crazy actually. Thinking about it, that would be very crazy.
Yeah, it might be too violent. It'll be nice to see in Turks Co where it's balanced around it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
We also have
I'm sure
Virtual
people
Fighter
will.
6 coming up.
Oh, that's gonna be something. Oh my God, that's gonna be something. I saw the
The teaser was
footage. I saw
nice.
the teaser was fantastic. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, they've got
I
it's
like.
going in the Yakuza engine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one. I played Virtual Fighter 4 actually a long time ago. Um,
Oh, really?
and it's a fun game. It's an interesting game. It's more feels like inboxing. It's more like cerebral for each blow that you're gonna do.
Yes, that is a fantastic way to put it, actually. That's a really good way to put it because um I haven't played much Virtual Fight or really a lot of 3D fighting games to be honest, but I feel as if I am fighting like it's realistic and I am fighting somebody that has a limited capability. Like you know how most fighting games you have unlimited potential to do zoning or you can back out, you can rush in. In this game, I felt like a human being fighting another human being, you
Yeah,
know?
you can only kick them
There's
if they're
that.
next to you. You can't fly across the screen.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I thought that was very interesting. It reminded me a lot of MMA fights in a certain kind of way. So I really like that about Virtual Fighter.
Yeah, it's definitely the most grounded. It'll be interesting to see. And then finally, we have Garou coming up, City of the Wolves. I know you got to be excited for that
Oh,
one. I
oh
did. I
my
did read
God.
your blurb earlier, also, but you mostly talked about how much you like the clothes,
Yeah.
which is easy
I
to
should
agree with. It looks good.
Yeah, yeah, no. I think the biggest part for me about Goro that I especially liked was how much time you had in between inputs. Like I think it was a sec you could do inputs in between like a second. So there's a lot of leeway with that. And that's something that I know the sequel isn't doing. I know it's a lot tighter with motion inputs, but I think that's something to point out that Garo was doing a little bit, different.
Well, Garou also has the braking and top, so it'll be interesting to see how those and fainting. It'll be interesting to see how those interact with the systems, because it's sort of like
Yeah.
they came up with this idea of interrupting your specials, and no one does that. You know,
Yeah.
so it'll be really interesting to see how that develops. In Grow 99, like braking is really only used on one special, right? And it's used in one sort of
Yeah.
situation. So we're gonna see if they expand that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And I
it
think
it could also be very creative in the way that it can push 2D fighting games.
yeah, I was looking at the combos that people were doing, and I was just, obviously there are a lot of combo heavy fighting games out there, but I think the fact that you build the sequel of Goro and you build it off of what was before by adding stuff like EX moves, and I can't think of anything else right now, but you add more on top of the gameplay is something I found really interesting because a lot of fighting games don't really do that in my opinion. They always try to erase the gameplay of the last game and bring in some new stuff or
You
bring
know,
in
that's
like
true. It does.
new
It does look like Guro
arrow.
99 when you watch the videos, like when you watch the moves and
Yeah,
stuff like that, and their properties. It just they have more juggle capability if they're spending that heat meter or whatever it is.
yeah. They added more meat to the sandwich. You have a lot more than before, which is something really interesting to me.
Very cool. Well, we're near the end of our stream here. Do you have any last comments for 2024 before we wish it well?
I think in terms of announcements, this could possibly be the best year in a long time.
You know what? That's
A
fair. There
very
was a
long
lot of
time.
really exciting stuff this year. The 2XKO beta, City of the Wolves, VF6, all of the crazy DLC characters we've seen. It was a fun
Return of
year to follow
Marvel.
the news.
I know it was insane. Return of what? Return of Marvel, Return of VF, CVS 2 coming back, Power Stone coming, Project Justice. Oh my dude, insane.
Yeah, we didn't even mention those. Good point.
Yeah, so definitely in terms of announcements, for the time that I've been on this earth, it's been probably it's for me it's been the best year in terms of announcements. Definitely.
All right. Well, 2024, you weren't half bad. All right. This has been Cyano with the FGC at UCLA, and thanks for joining me here at the end. Nightwing is the best, Robin.
Peace out, guys. And obviously, Nightwing is the best Robin.
There you have it. All right. We'll catch you next time on the Ursine Combo Lab Audio, the UCLA podcast. Later.